Next tonight, a former soldier accused of spying has pleaded guilty to escaping Wandsworth Prison and going on the run. Daniel Khalif changed his plea partway through a trial which heard how the 23-year-old got out by clinging to a lorry. While he was out, Khalif bought clothes from M&S and a drink from McDonald's. Here's our correspondent Simon Harris.
Thanks to video surveillance, jurors had a step-by-step guide to Daniel Khalif's prison break. CCTV cameras in Wandsworth captured him on the morning of his escape, working in the prison kitchen. He was in custody awaiting trial on spying charges. But what the cameras didn't see was Khalif clinging to the underneath of a lorry, leaving the jail after a food delivery. He'd fashioned a sling from kitchen trousers. It was another 10 hours before cameras picked him up in Richmond, now wearing shorts, a T-shirt and a Covid-style face mask. In a branch of Mountain Warehouse, he stole a baseball cap. On the same day, he was seen walking close to the Thames. The next morning, he's in M&S buying new clothes. A day later, he's still on the run, despite a huge manhunt. In a newsagent's, he buys a paper. It's got the story of his escape. Day 4 of his life as a fugitive sees him buying a coffee in McDonald's and taking advantage of the toilets for a quick change of clothes. But not long afterwards, Khalif was finally caught on a canal towpath in Chiswick. In October, he went on trial at Woolwich Crown Court. When he gave evidence last week, Khalif appeared to contradict his not guilty plea. He told the jury, "I accept that I left the prison and I didn't have any permission." Today, the prison escape charge was put to him again, and he replied, "I'm guilty." Khalif told the jurors he planned the breakout from Wandsworth in the hope of being moved to a high security unit to escape other prisoners he referred to as sex offenders and terrorists. Despite his guilty plea today, he's still on trial, accused of spying for Iran and for being behind a bomb hoax, charges he denies. Simon Harris, ITV News, Woolwich Crown Court.
Next tonight, ministers are planning to take over management of Tower Hamlets Council because of serious concerns about how it's being run. A support package has been suggested for the East London Authority, which includes a ministerial envoy to monitor all management decisions. It's not the first time the government's intervened with the running of the council. On both occasions, Mayor Lutfur Rahman was at the helm. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the story.
Lutfur Rahman's return to power was Labour's worst nightmare. In 2015, he was suspended from office after an election court found him guilty of corrupt and illegal practices. But in 2022, the voters of Tower Hamlets re-elected him as mayor. Now the government is to muscle in on his administration. Ministers decided to intervene after a damning report by government inspectors. They were called in by the last government and identified a number of serious failings. They included a lack of trust leading to a high turnover of senior managers, a toxic culture at senior levels, and scrutiny at the council to be weak and confused.
The mayor should have all the time and effort concentrated on improving services and making sure that we deliver the best outcomes for our residents. Today's statement, ministerial statement, shows that this council has failed its best value duty.
It's everything. It's housing allocations. It's when people come in and they can't even get a blue badge or something. It really, really, really percolates down to the ordinary people. And many people on the housing waiting list are in a terrible situation.
The government plans to send mentors known as ministerial envoys to oversee improvements at the council. Outside the town hall today, a group of workers claimed there's a bullying and toxic culture in one of the housing departments. They were joined by retired postie and local resident Kate, who doesn't view Rahman as an ogre.
He's only been back in house about 18 months, so I don't know how people want everything to be fixed overnight, but he's trying, and hopefully we'll get somewhere. But it's entrenched, it's baked in culture, which he's trying to sort out.
There's no doubt Rahman is a divisive figure, a former Labour councillor who now leads his own party, Aspire. He commands huge support from Tower Hamlets' Bangladeshi community. He wouldn't talk to us today, but volunteered one of his deputies.
We're not perfect, nobody will say they're perfect, and we will do everything possible to make improvements.
Do you recognise the lack of trust identified?
Well, you can't be trusted by everyone, this is impossible, but here at Tower Hamlets, people do trust us. In May 2022, vast majority of the people voted the mayor in with a majority council.
The government said the ministerial envoys would attend meetings and offer advice for at least 3 years. Simon Harris, ITV News, Whitechapel.
36 post offices in London are at risk of closure, putting hundreds of jobs at risk. The Post Office says it's looking to move to a fully franchised model, which will benefit postmasters. But union bosses say making the announcement so soon after the Horizon scandal is tone deaf and immoral. Our correspondent Simon Harris reports.
The post office in Hampstead is one of more than 30 in London facing possible closure. The hit list has been drawn up by post office bosses as part of a plan to transform the business. That's of little comfort to Hamdi, who's 84.
Sadly, it's the same with bank. Apparently, the tendency is that they want the people to go each and everything in their life online. And this is not easy. We are not the generation of digital.
Coral is an artist who relies on the branch to supply her customers.
I'm here like all the time. And I really like this post office. They're really nice to me in there. It's like my safe space. I know it sounds like a really weird thing to say. I just really like it. It's just like a nice chill vibe in there. They're always really nice and I always chat away to the people that work there.
But a business needs more than a chilled vibe.
Nearly half of its branches are not profitable or only make a small profit from the post office business. Postmaster pay hasn't increased materially for a decade. The company has a high cost base and needs to transform its IT system.
The company is considering the future of 36 so-called Crown post offices in London. Some might be transferred to new owners under franchises. Others could be closed. But the post office might have a fight on its hands.
We will take whatever steps possible, including the potential for industrial action, to make sure that there's a different outcome for the members, for the country, for the public who use those services.
The savings should mean more money for thousands of other post offices like Attles in Wimbledon. He's not surprised he's struggling.
Why would you want to post a Christmas card when the prices are at £1.65 for a local first class mail?
Traditional post offices also face a challenge from secure lockers like these in Baker Street.
Post offices are more intense and queues are longer. This is quite easy to access. They're popping up more and more across London as well, and more corner shops are starting to do the service as well, so it's actually quite easy.
But for those who rely on post office branches, there may be unwelcome changes ahead. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Good evening. A farmer from Surrey has told ITV News London that the future of her family's multi-generational business could collapse if it's subject to inheritance tax hikes. Currently, some farms are exempt from paying the tax when land is transferred after death. Despite loud opposition both in the Commons and rural communities, the Treasury says from April, all farms worth more than £1 million will have to pay a rate of 20%. As a result, thousands of farmers have pledged to take their fight from the countryside to the capital, something the Met Police says it's ready for. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Keith and Nellie's beef farm is less than 25 miles from central London, but feels like a world away. He's the fourth generation of his family to farm the 300 acres at Brockham in Surrey, but they worry he could be the last. The budget has made them think the unthinkable, selling off land.
It would make this a non-viable business. At the moment, it's viable with the land we have. We need the acreage we have to finish and do the cattle that we're doing and keeping both my husband and I in a job and keeping the countryside looking as beautiful as it does.
From April 2026, farms valued at more than £1 million will be hit with inheritance tax. The threshold rises to £3 million for husband and wife farmers. But how many farms will be affected is now being disputed.
The Minister has now admitted they need to check their figures. Shouldn't the cost of the family farm tax to farming families have been checked before the budget?
3/4 of farmers will pay nothing as a result of these changes. Family farming will continue into future generations just as it should do.
But many landowners aren't reassured, fearing the new rules will spell the end of a way of life as families are forced to sell up to pay their tax bill. The farmers' anger at the inheritance tax changes will move from the countryside to Westminster next week. It's expected to be the biggest demonstration faced by Sir Keir Starmer's government. When farmers demonstrated about pressures on the industry in March, they brought tractors to Westminster. That's not supposed to happen on Tuesday, but the organisers of the protest say more than 10,000 have registered to take part.
This is not French or European style farmer protests. No one's planning. We don't want to cause disruption. We don't want to. The idea is not to bring the capital to a halt. French style.
What do you hope next week's protest will achieve?
I would lovely to think they're going to reverse it. I don't think they're ever going to reverse it, but I reckon they need to tweak their numbers quite a bit. There's a big difference there. And they need to see the knock-on effect it's having to every business down the line and the countryside, the aspect of the farms.
Nellie doesn't know if her daughter or son will want to be farmers like their parents. They're not yet teenagers. But if they do, there's no guarantee they'll be able to afford to inherit the family farm.
So, Simon, the organisers of next week's protests have promised it won't be disruptive, but it's going to be a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, the changes to inheritance tax have provoked real fury in some rural communities. The organisers of the protests have already had to move it from Trafalgar Square to Whitehall because there's not enough space. They need more space. There's going to be a rally with speakers, including, we're told, Jeremy Clarkson, star of Clarkson's Farm. Everyone attending has been told to wear wellies, but not to bring farm equipment. So, in theory, no tractors or combines. The Met Police says it's liaising with the organisers, but will have enough police on duty to deal with any eventuality.
OK, Simon, thanks very much indeed.